I keep thinking about kids, and not because I want them, because I really don't, but just been thinking about kids and fertility, because obviously going through chemo and cancer, you know, that can affect your fertility. And I remember the social worker in particular saying that I had like a 10 to 15% chance of becoming infertile or having massive fertility problems. And that's really low compared to a lot of treatments. And she really just, you know, reassured me to say, hey, like given your treatment, ABVD treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma, most people of your age who have gone through this will, you know, go on to have kids and have no problem. But we do recommend having kids earlier rather than later. And obviously women are always told that message to have kids earlier than later for just normal fertility stuff. But obviously the chemo and cancer stuff kind of compound that. And so that kind of makes me scared, because even though I've never really wanted to have kids, you know, I've thought about, you know, maybe I could have kids, maybe that would be okay, but for a very long time I didn't want them. It's only recently that I thought, maybe I could be happy with them. And so I've always had that, you know, perspective, and because I'm really like really into my career and really ambitious with it, I want to do a lot of things before having kids if I was to have them. And so that would mean that I probably would have kids around, you know, the late 20s to very early 30s, you know, around that 30 mark. And so even if I'm not totally infertile, I should still be having kids earlier, especially given my experience with chemo, but I wouldn't want to normally. And the things, I don't even know if I want to have kids. And so I find it hard to kind of make decisions for my near future, especially about children and family, because at the moment and for the next couple of years, I don't want to have them. But in reality, these are the best years to have them if I would want them, especially if my future self wants them. But I don't know what my future self will want. I only know what I want now, and that's not to have them. And so I'm in this like weird place to know what to do, even though I'm definitely not having kids anytime soon, but it kind of, yeah, I guess it puts my mind in a weird place as I keep thinking about these things and thinking about what my future self might want. But you know, we can always think about what our future selves might want, and we might never want them. So we probably should just make the decisions that are best for us now. But I just find the whole fertility thing particularly difficult, especially for women, given that we have always been told to have kids earlier, and it can really kind of disrupt our career if we are, you know, really ambitious with our career. And so, you know, that stuff has always been really difficult for us, but then especially with chemo and cancer, I feel like, yeah, it just complicates things even more. But I do remember from the psychologist telling me that I shouldn't be having kids within the first 12 months after treatment, because that's not really that smart apparently for our reproductive systems. I think that's the same for both men and women, that we should give our bodies a chance to heal, and for our reproductive systems, I guess, to work at their best to create a baby if we wanted to create one. And I guess it's also particularly hard for women, given the fact that when we are, you know, given the choice at the beginning or just before treatment starts to say, hey, do you want to collect your eggs, because this treatment might affect your eggs? And that was something that was told to me. You know, we could decide to go through that whole IVF thing to collect my eggs and freeze them, but that would just take a long time. That can take weeks, and I think even longer sometimes, months, depending on where your hormonal cycle is. You know, you have to take different drugs and things, and then have to go into like a little surgery thing to take out the eggs. Like, that's a huge process. And when you find out that you have cancer and that you need to start chemo as soon as possible, most people are not going to delay chemo, and so they go into it and kind of feel like they've had that chance of having kids or having your eggs removed from you. Because if you do end up infertile, you know, that was the crucial moment to collect your eggs. If you were really serious and you really knew that you had to become a mother, that was the time to collect them, but you weren't really able to because you had to start chemo straight away. And at least I was of the mindset of starting chemo as soon as possible. So for me, it was an easy answer, especially given the fact that I've never felt like I needed to become a mother. So I was like, well, if I become infertile, that's okay. But I said that, and then a few days later, like, I was really upset. And I think ultimately it just comes down to the fact that we have had the choice taken away from us. You know, we didn't get the choice to have kids. You know, the chemo rendered us infertile, or rendered us with really awful fertility problems, and that's just awful. Even if you weren't 100% set on having kids to start with, if you decide you do want to have kids at 30, you know, you should be able to have them, and it's just really unfortunate. And I guess I've just been thinking about that a lot, because I don't know what my 30-year-old self will want. I only know what my 23-year-old self will want, and that's not to have kids, not anytime soon, and not within the next couple of years, but that's really the best time to have them. But I've just been thinking about it a lot, which is weird for someone who doesn't really want to have kids. And I just feel like the whole chemo thing and the possibility of infertility problems makes you think about them a lot more, and it makes you think about what kind of life you want to lead. And that can be both good and bad, because it's good to reflect, but at the same time it can make you really anxious and really, you know, worried, and makes you kind of second guess every decision that you make. And that's just a really crappy place to be. And of course, and it can make you think that maybe your body's broken, especially if it becomes infertile, and that obviously leads into its whole, you know, own identity problem thing that we can suffer from. But it's just something that I've been thinking a lot more about, because I've never really thought about infertility, because as far as I knew, like, my family's never had fertility problems, but that's also something that people don't talk about normally. And so I just assumed that I wouldn't really have any, and if I did, that would be okay, because that would just be the way that my body was. But, you know, now I've had chemo in the mix, and so it's not just how my body was, it's how my body's reacted to chemo, and it just makes me more upset and angry that I might not have the choice, especially if I decide to change my mind. And I'm also just grateful that I'm someone who was never really strict on having kids, that I was never, you know, never felt like my identity had to also include being a mother, and that I had to have kids as an adult, because I think that would just be really devastating. And I'm really sad for those of us who have to go through it and, you know that they want to become a parent and find out that they can't become a parent because of the chemo treatment. I can't imagine how awful that is, especially given the fact that the crucial time to collect eggs or sperm is just before you start treatment. And for men, that's really easy to collect their sperm, but for women, it's really hard to collect their eggs and can take weeks. So it just sucks that we don't get the choice, and the choices that we do get are really limited, especially for women. If they need to get to chemo straight away, they might not be able to waste time with the IVF process. Please let me know your thoughts down below about infertility and chemo and not having a choice about kids potentially, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye. Hey everyone, so I wanted to make a new post-chemo update, and especially because I've just been feeling a lot better, and